Right, this is where it all starts. The first frost of the year. As I'm sure I'm going to be reminded in the comments section of this video, the Immortals continue to ride throughout winter. Icy rain and 6-foot snowdrifts being no problem at all. And those that live in California and various other hot parts of the world have only ever seen ice and snow on TV or in films. And they've got absolutely no idea what this winter thing is all about. The rest of us, however, tend not to ride our bikes so much. The odd dry sunny day and we'll take the opportunity to take a ride out to one of the local bike stops. Other than that, the bike remains ensconced in the garage over the winter period, 3 or 4 months. Then come March, April time, as the weather warms up, our attention returns to biking and certain posts start to crop up. Things like, is it just me or does everyone else have to buy a new bike battery every year as well? Or a common scenario, I started my bike up last weekend, battery was fine, took it for a quick run around the block, put it back away, came back to it today and the battery's flat. There's obviously something wrong with it. Then we go through several pages of problem solving. There's a problem with your CAN bus system, it's not shut off properly and it's drained the battery. You've obviously got switch leakage in your ignition. 101 long drawn out explanations as to what it could be, apart from the most obvious. Now there was a time when I would try to give some input as to what the most likely cause was, but I would get shot down in flames. People being more open to believing that it was a faulty battery or that the battery had actually been drained by aliens passing overhead during the dead of night to refuel their flying saucers, than the fact that they'd just not maintained the battery properly. All batteries, or just about all batteries, especially automotive batteries, suffer from what's known as charge decay. That is, that the battery will naturally lose about 1% of its charge per day. Nearly all bikes these days have CAN bus or LIN bus electrical systems, which even when the ignition is switched off will continue to draw a tiny amount of current from the battery. So that charge decay then turns into 1.25 or 1.50% per day. Most bike are electric start now, and simply starting your bike up can take 10% of that charge that the battery has. Then we've got electronic fuel injection, headlamps which are on all the time. It all adds up, and that little battery sitting underneath the seat on your bike has a really hard life compared to its ancestors. And that's before we start wiring sat-navs up to our bikes or installing a USB plug so we can charge our phones while we're riding. Or worst of all, heated grips. And then we have the memory effect that most batteries suffer from. During its first year of life, your bike may spend 3 or 4 months sitting in the garage during the winter months. And during those months, the total capacity of that battery may be reduced by up to 50%. It may recover a little bit of that during the summer months while you're riding it regularly. But in all likelihood, when you put that bike away again the following winter, the battery's total capacity may have been reduced to 60 or 70% of its former capacity. It then goes through another winter, and that's reduced to 30 or 40% of its total capacity. And by the time it gets to its third winter, your battery has pretty much had it. So that guy that started his bike last weekend and the battery was fine, and then suddenly found this weekend that the battery was flat, had actually been deluding himself, because in all likelihood the last time he used the bike he'd finished the battery off and it was actually flat when he put it away. It's very common for a bike battery to only last 2 or 3 years, but with proper maintenance it can last 3 times that. And batteries are expensive. Depending on the model of bike, it can be anything from £50 to £100 for a replacement battery. Now, trying to predict exactly how long your battery is going to last without maintenance is a bit like asking how long a piece of string is. It's down to the individual rider's habits, how often he rides the bikes, whether he tends to take long journeys or short journeys, whether he runs additional equipment like phone chargers or sat-navs, whether the bike is just left in storage throughout the winter or whether you do take the opportunity to ride it once or twice, or more. These factors will all have a bearing on whether you just get a year out of your battery, or maybe if you're lucky 3 years. But there's absolutely no reason why it should be this way. It's a scientific fact that keeping your battery at optimum charge at all times will give you maximum life out of your battery. And when I say maximum life, I'm talking up to 9 years. And devices known as optimizers have been available on the market to help you do just that since the 1990s. Now, Optimate is a manufacturer that's pretty much had the market to itself here in the UK and in other regions for the last 30 years. They've had little or no competition, and to that end, nothing much has changed with the products. They've been far more complicated to use than they need to be. Often very confusing to use. Inconvenient in that they're not fully waterproof, so for a lot of people, they're just not suitable. And then the biggest thing of all, because they've had the market to themselves, they've not priced the products competitively. So some riders considering an optimizer have balked at the price and decided not to bother. But I have noticed over the last couple of years, a myriad of unfamiliar manufacturers have moved into the UK market. And from those, I've selected what I believe is a little gem. Now, an optimizer is in itself a battery charger, but it's actually a bit more than that. It doesn't just charge batteries. Often referred to as a battery tender, it keeps an eye on your battery. It charges it when your battery requires charging, monitors it when it doesn't require charging, and then recognizing when capacity drops and begins to charge it to keep that battery at 100% charge safely at all times. Deltran, no doubt, will be a familiar name to those of you in the States. A well-known and dependable name that's been used in motor racing and has also been the brand of choice for the US forces. A name that's been around since the mid-1960s, but they are a relative newcomer to these shores. They produce an entire range of battery chargers and battery tenders, but the one that I chose for today's video is the 12 volt 800 milliamp hour battery tender, designed specifically for motorcycles and watercraft. It's suitable for just about all types of battery. It's competitively priced, and for me the most important selling points are it's small and compact, it's 100% waterproof, and it's a simple plug and play item with no bells and whistles to overcomplicate things. The Deltran waterproof 800 battery tender is guaranteed for 3 years. It's a very small and compact unit, about the size of a computer mouse. It also comes with plenty of cable both from the unit to your power point and from the unit to your bike. So I reckon it will cater for most eventualities, although I believe you can buy extension cables if these are not enough. It comes with a choice of connectors for you to connect up to your bike, and both connect up to the unit using an SAE type plug. As you would expect, there's the standard crocodile type clips, which are ideal for bench charging a battery if that's the way you want to go. But it also comes with an eyelet type lead, which can be permanently hooked up to the battery on your bike and left on the bike for daily tender use. Both leads are fuse protected, and this tender does also double up as a charger for general automotive passenger car use. As with all my bikes, I chose to use the permanent installation method on the Interceptor. A simple, straightforward job, and once it's installed, it means that you can hook your bike up to this tender whenever it's not being ridden to ensure that you get absolute maximum life out of your battery. I'll quickly take you through it. First of all, remove your right hand side panel using your key. Then remove your seat. This will reveal your toolkit. Then remove your toolkit. Your toolkit sits in a plastic tray that's held in place by 3 bolts. Remove those bolts and then remove the tool tray. This will reveal your positive terminal for your battery, easily identifiable by a red plastic cover. Then remove your left hand side panel. This is held in place by a single Allen bolt just on the inside of the seat rail. Carefully remove it and don't drop it down inside the battery area, and retain both the bolt and the washer that goes with it for replacement after you've finished. Once you've done that, prise the side panel away from the bike from the top until the side panel spigot comes out of the rubber socket that holds it in place on the top left hand side. Once you've done that, lift the side panel upwards and that'll release it from the bike. This then reveals the negative terminal for the bike, which is identifiable by a black rubber boot. The electrical system on the Interceptor is a negative earth system, and according to Deltran's instructions, you should connect up your positive terminal first to the battery, followed by the negative terminal. You will need a suitable sized Phillips screwdriver to do this. Take the permanent attachment harness that comes with your kit and carefully arrange it so that both eyelets will reach their respective terminals on your battery, and that you're able to get the SAE connector to an easily accessible area where it can be secured to your bike, where it'll be safe and easy to use after each ride. I placed mine on the left hand side on the vertical frame rail that comes down from the seat rail around the airbox, sort of between the airbox and the engine. This is an area that'll be affected least by the elements while you're riding. Then hold back the plastic cover on your positive terminal and using a suitable screwdriver, unscrew the terminal bolt. The two eyelets on your harness are clearly marked negative and positive, the positive obviously being red. Thread the bolt directly through this eyelet and then replace the bolt back onto the terminal. The red plastic cover does have a cutout to allow this sort of harness to be attached. Make sure that you orientate the eyelet to match up with that cutout, otherwise you won't be able to replace your plastic cover properly. When you've done that, repeat this process for the negative on the other side using your negative ring terminal. Make sure that both are securely fastened but don't over tighten them, and then using a couple of black cable ties, secure your harness to the frame so that it doesn't flap about when you're riding. Also, take care to ensure that the harness doesn't interfere with anything else on the bike and that it's not going to cause any problems in the future. You can then go ahead and replace your side panels and your seat, which is the exact reverse of taking them off. And what you're left with is a convenient, safe and permanent installation that will allow you to hook your bike up to your charger in just a couple of seconds after each ride, to ensure that your battery is always in A1 tip-top condition. Operation of this particular tender is really easy. In fact, it's the simplest I've come across, which is a good thing. It doesn't light up like a confusing, flashing Christmas tree like some of them do, which leaves you wondering whether it's working correctly. It's got one single light. When it's charging, the light illuminates amber. When the battery is fully charged and the tender is simply monitoring your battery, it illuminates green. It's as simple as that. An uncomplicated indicator system that lets you know exactly what is happening without having to constantly refer back to instructions to try and work out what the confusing sequences of flashing lights mean. I think one of the best things about this charger, the one thing that makes it so practical for everyone, is the fact that it is fully waterproof. It's IP67 rated, which basically means that while it's switched on, it's capable of being submerged in up to 1 metre of water for up to half an hour. Even the leading brand is only IP54 rated, which means it can stand some splashing of water, but it's recommended you don't get it wet. Now, if you have to keep your bike outside in the elements, that is a major drawback, and that's where this Deltran tender wins hands down. I would always recommend that when you are not riding your bike, it should be hooked up to a tender, which is switched on. The minute you switch off your ignition, the battery will slowly start to lose charge. And the longer that it's left not at optimal charge, the greater the incidence of battery damage is going to be. Quite often, if you start your bike up, go for a ride, and it's less than 10 or 20 miles, that ride will not have replaced the charge that you used just starting the bike up. So even if you live in a warm country and you ride the bike all the time, unless you're doing 30 to 50 mile runs as a matter of course, your battery will inevitably be at less than optimal charge when you've finished your journey. Taking into account this has the ability to potentially make your battery last up to 3 times longer than you would normally expect to get from a battery. A tender like this is going to pay for itself very quickly. And mark my words, those that scoff at the use of a battery tender on modern bikes are, generally speaking, the ones that spend a lot more money on replacement batteries than those that do use tenders. Once again, thanks for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it useful. If you have, please just take a second to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. I will of course leave a link for this Deltran battery tender in the video description down below for those that want to have a look. I will of course be back on Friday, so until then, ride safely and I'll see you soon.